utility to the equipment terminals.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I would love it. Look, when my mother was living, mother and father, by the way, they would always kid me. You sure you know one of the ones that your grandpa worked on? Because here's the funny thing, all right? All of my family worked heavy construction, typically for the government or for the Corps of Engineers. My father did, okay? Because I was born in Alaska, outside of Fairbanks, where my dad did all of the Nike missile bases.
Nice.
He did all of the Air Force radar tracking stations. And then he just did all of that. And during the summers, okay, when you could really work in Alaska, because nobody would really stay, if you were had an outside type of job. You never stayed there, so we always came out. All right. Well, can you imagine after I'm born, my parents came out at some point that first year after June of 1960, and they meet my grandfather at the gate at the Royal City site.
Damn.
So 568C, okay?
Yeah. Flooded.
So that's how early, right, which was really kind of ironic. But my mom and dad, while they were living, would often kid me, you don't want to tackle a tiny site.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of course it was, I remember when Barry bought them, again, it was fabulous. I had great times in that site, playing in that site as a kid.
How did it look when you were a kid?
Well, it was still graffiti. That's the way it was. You have to understand that the powerhouse at the Batum site, that plug was always open.
Yeah.
That's how the Air Force took those 4
diesel
1 megawatt generators.
Yeah.
They took those out, and that's how they did it. All the other sites, they didn't do it that way, but they did do it that way at Batum.
That's a shame. What years are you talking about when you were a kid playing in it? What era are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking mid-'70s.
So you're only 10 years out of deactivation, and it's already graffitiing and trashed.
Absolutely.
Already trashed.
My aunt sends me an article because, see, I spent, Bryce, every summer growing up, I spent it with my grandparents, my maternal grandparents, and that was my grandfather that built these.
Right.
And their second oldest, my mom's second oldest sister, was married to the man that was the superintendent of all 3 of these sites.
Nice.
Okay. It was really a lot of that was all of the questions I had growing up. How did this happen? How did this happen? Because my grandfather had a lot of this stuff. So what I'm getting at is that it was just, I would always hear stories, where this site's at, and, go there. And then, of course, if I was by myself, I always had to promise my grandparents I would not ever go underground without another person there. And I never disobeyed that. I always followed that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I thought it was a pretty good rule.
For sure.
Because that's a good way of getting down there and get hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Because who the hell are you going to call? No cell phones, right?
No.
But looking back on some of that stuff, I look at when I played in the Walker sites, all right, the F sites. Hell, you're only talking basically 10, 12 years out. To me, that was nothing, but you could see a lot of the stuff. You couldn't, I had told you at the site, obviously I'm not there. I found in my mother's stuff, I knew I had them. My mother had them. She had an envelope that I came across when I was going through after my mother passed away. And I was going through all of this stuff. And I came across an envelope, and by God, it was the photographs that I shot at the Chico site.
That's
in
awesome.
1984, on the surface and underground.
Damn.
So, I'll get those digitized and send you a copy.
I'd love that.
I mean, it's the one thing that just blew me away. See, now I'm going to jump around again. We're going to jump to Chico.
Just tighten.
All of the stuff from underground was on the surface. The motors, the steel, you name it, the water chillers, everything was on the surface. Okay? The launchers, the doors were open. The cranes were still there. They had some drag, I forget what they call them, but it's a crane that's got a drag bucket on it, right? And they had that at Batum. You can see where they dug down and removed the LOX tanks.
Yeah, that's right.
At each one of the propeller terminals.
And Deer Trail.
Oh, yeah, especially Deer Trail. And the fuel tanks, because that's how you would get into Deer Trail.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? Back on the Beale site. So, here you go. Okay, then after we really explored the best we could, and it was pretty neat, the Lincoln, okay. The antenna silos, they used to shoot skeet there for the local community.
Right.
Okay?
That's on Siloworld.
Yeah. And, from there, the guys there at the bar the night before, they told us where the Lincolns, where the Live Oak, Sutter Butte site was.
Mm-hmm.
And they also told us where the Chico site was. So my buddy and I, we got to go check out Sutter Butte, right? We got to go check out Live Oak. And sure enough, we went to Live Oak, and one of the guys had told me that the guy that owned it lived it on the street that you leave from Live Oak, and it takes quite a ways because it's kind of on the backside of Sutter Butte. And, you would go down this road, and where it curves, he told me that's where the owner lived.
Yeah, the north side, yeah.
And so anyway, my buddy and I, we went in there, and we were warned. You were warned to begin with on Sutter Butte. Look out, this guy's, he won't hesitate calling the sheriff on you, and you'll get arrested, okay? Well, hell, none of us wanted that, so we had to make sure, of course, we could get in it the right way. And, long story short, there was a real nice house built very near where right on the original access road to the site. All right. Well, we got on it. And the only way we could get in is I had all the repelling gear. So we all packed in everything, and air intake, air exhaust shaft to the powerhouse was open. And there's a doorway down at the bottom of it that was open so we could gain access to the powerhouse. Well, once you got access to the powerhouse, piece of cake. But what was interesting, and I'll back up just for a second, in that bar the night before, one of the old guys that was the salvager was telling me the story that when he also worked on the salvage of the Live Oak / Sutter Butte site. And how they got and moved the counterweights to the launch platform was on these big carts, okay? Almost looked like big wagons, okay? And they would take those up and down the utility tunnels / cableways. Well, when my buddy and I, when you come in on that shaft, you're really about 10 to 15 feet above the floor of the powerhouse. Are you following me there?
Yeah.
Well, some of that induction equipment is still there. Online, you can see somebody shot some of the pictures of being in there because I could tell the equipment and I could tell where it was shot. I can't find, my mother must not have had it. I don't know what I've done with the original photographs I shot of the Sutter Butte site, interior, right?